In the year 2478, the United Terran Union sent a ship called the Helios Dawn far into space. It was a mission to explore places no human had been before. The captain of the ship was a woman named Laura Briggs. She was calm, smart, and always ready for anything. Her crew included both scientists and military officers. They were excited, but also a little nervous. No one knew what they would find. After months of travel, they entered a quiet star system with no signs of life. The planets were dead, and the sun was weak. But their sensors picked up something strange. There was a large object floating between two moons. When they got closer, they saw it was a ship. It was not human. It looked broken and dark. Parts of it were torn open, and there was no sign of power. Captain Briggs gave the order to move in. They sent a small team to check the ship. The team found signs of life inside. A few aliens were still alive, though badly hurt. They were tall, with smooth fur and large eyes. The humans gave them medical care and brought them back to the Helios Dawn. The aliens called themselves the Valari. They spoke using a machine that translated their language into English. They were shocked that humans had helped them. They said most races in the galaxy would never do such a thing. After they were strong enough to speak clearly, the Valari shared terrible news. A race called the Drexari was coming. The Drexari were powerful and cruel. They had destroyed many planets and ruled over many species. No one had ever stopped them. The Valari had been fleeing when the Drexari attacked their ship. Captain Briggs took the message seriously. She recorded everything and sent it back to Earth. The news reached the leaders of the United Terran Union quickly. The idea of an enemy that no one had ever beaten made many people afraid, but others saw it as a challenge. While waiting for orders from Earth, Captain Briggs and her crew helped repair the Valari ship. The Valari were surprised again. They said humans were different. They said humans were brave and kind. Briggs replied simply, it was the right thing to do. A few days later, Earth sent a message. The leaders wanted to speak with the Valari directly. They asked if the Valari would help them learn more about the Drexari. The Valari agreed. They warned Earth that fighting the Drexari would be hard. They told stories of how entire cities vanished in minutes. They said the Drexari had ships the size of moons. But even after hearing all this, the people of Earth did not back down. Captain Briggs was proud of her home planet. She told the Valari, we may be new to the galaxy, but we don't run from a fight when the cause is right. The Valari began to believe that maybe, just maybe, humans could do what no one else had. Maybe humans could stand against the Drexari. Back on the Helios Dawn the crew made space for their new guests. The Valari shared maps, images, and stories about the Drexari. Every officer studied them. Every scientist asked questions. Every soldier trained harder. In the middle of it all stood Captain Briggs. She looked out the window of the command deck, staring into the stars. She knew the journey ahead would be dangerous, but she also knew one thing for sure. Humanity had just stepped onto the galactic stage, and the galaxy would never forget the moment humans decided to help. This was not just a meeting between two species. It was the beginning of something much bigger. A warning had been given, and humanity had answered it. The war had not started yet, but the first move had already been made, and Captain Briggs was ready. The warning from the Valari changed everything. The leaders on Earth met with top scientists, generals, and diplomats. They had to decide quickly. The Drexari were coming, and no one knew when they would arrive. Earth had never faced a threat like this before. It was time to act. The first step was to talk to the Valari and their friends. There were other alien groups who had also suffered because of the Drexari. These groups were small and afraid. Many had lost their planets or their families. At first, they did not want to work with humans. They thought humans were too new, too weak. But the Valari spoke up for Earth. They told the other aliens how the humans had saved them, even when there was no reason to help. Slowly, the other groups started to listen. After many long talks, a small alliance was formed. It was not strong, and it was not full of trust, but it was a start. To lead Earth's military side of the alliance, the United Terran Union picked Colonel Dean Harper. He was a quiet man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had fought in many wars on Earth and had earned the respect of his soldiers. Harper didn't like politics. He liked clear orders, good planning, and soldiers who followed through. When he heard about the Drexari, he didn't panic. He just asked, "What do we need to do?" Harper met the alien leaders during a meeting on a neutral space station. It was the first time he had ever seen aliens up close. Some had long arms, others had wings, and some didn't speak at all. But Harper stayed calm. He listened carefully and spoke simply. "If we work together," he said, "we have a chance." Training for the new alliance began right away. Human ships flew with alien ships. Human soldiers trained beside alien warriors. At first, things went badly. The aliens didn't understand human ways. They thought humans were too loud, too fast, and didn't follow rules. Humans thought the aliens were too slow and afraid to take risks. But over time, something changed. During one training mission, a group of alien fighters got stuck behind enemy lines. They were supposed to retreat. Instead, a young human pilot named Ryan Stone flew back to help them. He broke every rule, but he saved them. After that, the aliens looked at humans differently. Maybe humans were different, but maybe that was a good thing. Back on Earth, scientists worked hard to learn more about Drexari weapons and ships. They studied old wreckage that the Lari had brought. They built new tools and tested new ideas. Every day, they found small ways to improve. Captain Laura Briggs and her crew on the Helios Dawn also stayed busy. They acted as scouts, flying into unknown space to watch for Drexari movement. Sometimes they found signs of battles, burned-out ships, and silent stations. Each sign made it clear. The Drexari were real, and they were getting closer. Despite all the hard work, Harper still had doubts. The Drexari had been fighting for centuries. They had crushed every enemy before. Could humans really make a difference? One night, after a long day of drills, Harper sat with Briggs and a few other officers. He looked tired. "We're not ready," he said. "We're too few, too new." Briggs nodded, but she smiled. "Maybe. But we have something they don't." "What's that?" he asked. "Each other," she said, "and the will to fight back." Harper didn't say anything, but he looked out the window at the stars. Maybe she was right. Maybe the Drexari wouldn't see it coming. The alliance was still young. The trust was still weak, but something was starting to grow, a belief that together they might stand a chance, and if the Drexari came, they would not find an easy fight. The war had not begun, but the pieces were moving. Earth was no longer alone, and Colonel Harper was ready to lead, no matter the cost. The war finally began. A signal came from the colony world of Varelia. The Drexari had arrived. Varelia was a small planet, home to both humans and aliens. It was a peaceful place with farms, schools, and families. But now, dark Drexari ships filled the sky. The people on the ground sent a distress call. They begged for help. Colonel Dean Harper received the call on the Alliance station. He acted fast. He gathered every ship and soldier he could. The mission was simple: defend Varelia at all costs. The humans and their allies were outnumbered. The Drexari fleet was 3 times bigger. Their ships were larger and stronger. Their weapons could destroy cities in minutes, but Harper had a plan. He called in Lieutenant Kayla Monroe, a young but smart tactician. She had been studying Drexari patterns. She knew they liked to attack from the front and crush their enemies with force, but she also knew they didn't like surprises. Harper gave her command of a special unit. Her job was to find the weak spots and hit fast. The battle began above the planet. Drexari ships fired red beams that cut through space. The Alliance fleet moved quickly. Human pilots used tricky moves, and flew between enemy ships. Alien fighters backed them up, covering their sides. On the ground, Drexari troops landed near cities. They were tall, with sharp armor and glowing eyes. They moved like machines, breaking walls and smashing defenses. The people of Varelia ran or hid. Harper's ground forces landed in the north. They set traps, used smoke, and moved through forests. They didn't fight head-on. Instead, they used guerrilla tactics. Small teams hit fast and vanished. The Drexari grew confused. They were used to enemies who stood still, not ones who ran and fought from the shadows. Monroe found her chance. A large Drexari ship floated near the edge of the battle. It carried fuel and supplies. If they could destroy it, the Drexari would lose power. She led a group of fighters in silence. They flew low under radar. At the last second, they rose and fired. The attack worked. The supply ship exploded in a ball of fire. The sky lit up. The Drexari ships paused. Their chain of command was broken. For the first time, they began to fall back. On the ground, Harper saw the chance. He ordered a full push. Human and alien soldiers ran together, pushing the enemy back. In the end, the Drexari retreated. Cheers rose from every side. Varelia was saved. After the battle, the Alliance counted their losses. Many brave soldiers had died. But something had changed. The Drexari were not unbeatable. They could be hurt. They could be stopped. Lieutenant Monroe became a hero. Her bold move had turned the tide. She didn't like the attention, but she accepted the medal from Harper with quiet pride. The aliens who had once doubted humans now saw them in a new light. They were not just brave. They were clever and full of fight. The Valari said, "You don't just survive. You strike back." Back on the ship, Harper looked at a screen showing the stars. More battles would come. The Drexari would return. But now, the Alliance had hope. And hope was a powerful thing. Captain Briggs sent a message from deep space. She had seen signs of more Drexari movement. The war was only beginning. But this first clash had sent a message across the galaxy. Humanity would not run. Humanity would fight. And sometimes, they would win. After the victory on Varelia, the mood across the Alliance changed. For the first time, there was real hope. Humans had done what no one else could. They had made the Drexari retreat. The other alien leaders started to believe that maybe this war could be won. Colonel Dean Harper met with the Alliance Council. He stood tall and calm. "We can't wait for the Drexari to attack again," he said. "Now is the time to strike back." Some of the aliens were afraid. The Drexari still had more ships and more weapons. But Harper reminded them that surprise and speed were on their side. Humans had new ideas. They didn't always follow old rules. That was their strength. The Alliance agreed. They would begin a new phase of the war. They would stop defending and start attacking. One of the most important people at this time was a young tech officer named Jeremy Cole. He worked day and night to understand Drexari technology. He studied parts from damaged enemy ships. He tested new weapons in the labs. And then he made a big discovery. Jeremy found a way to break Drexari shields. Their ships were strong because of a special energy field, but he found a weak spot. If you hit the field at the right angle with a certain kind of pulse, the whole shield would fall. This new weapon changed everything. The first test was a success. A Drexari scout ship was destroyed in seconds. The news spread quickly through the Alliance. Jeremy became a hero, but he stayed quiet and focused. He knew there was still much work to do. At the same time, Captain Laura Briggs led a secret mission. Her ship, the Helios Dawn Asterisk, had been scouting deep space. Now she had a new job. She was going to board a Drexari command ship. No one had ever done this before. The Drexari ships were like flying cities. They were filled with guards and traps. But Briggs had a brave team. They trained for weeks. They studied every piece of data. and then they went in. They used a new cloaking device to get close. The Drexeri didn't see them coming. Briggs and her team entered through a damaged vent. They moved fast, disabling systems and locking doors. The mission was hard. They lost 2 team members. But in the end, they took control of the ship. The Alliance could not believe it. A human team had captured a Drexeri command ship. This had never happened before. The other species started calling humans the Wild Ones. They didn't understand how humans could do such things, but they respected them. Back at the Alliance base, Harper looked at the new reports. Every day brought better news. The Alliance was winning small battles. More species were joining. Even those who had once been too scared now wanted to fight. Harper knew it was a turning point. He called a meeting. "We have to move fast," he said. "We've shown them what we can do. Now we show them we won't stop." Lieutenant Monroe and Jeremy Cole worked together to plan new attacks. Briggs gave tips on how to enter Drexeri ships. Everyone worked as one team. The Drexeri began to change their tactics. They pulled back from some areas. They started to hide their ships. It was clear they were not used to losing. For the first time in years, the galaxy felt light again. There was still fear, but also something stronger: belief. The Alliance had changed. It was no longer led by fear. Now it was led by humans, not because they were the strongest or the oldest, but because they would not stop fighting. The Drexeri had met many enemies before, but they had never met anyone like humans. And now, the galaxy was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, the Drexeri could be defeated. Everything was going well for the Alliance. Each week brought new victories. More systems were freed from Drexeri control. Harper, Briggs, Monroe, and Cole were known across the stars. Hope was strong. The Drexeri were finally being pushed back. But victory can make others jealous. There was one species in the Alliance called the Trakari. They were small and clever. They had been part of the Alliance since the beginning. But now, they felt ignored. They believed the humans were taking too much control. The Trakari leaders started to whisper among themselves. "Why do the humans lead everything?" they asked. "Why are they praised while we do the hard work?" One Trakari leader, named Farnik, made a secret deal. He sent a message to the Drexeri. In exchange for safety, he would give them the location of the Alliance fleet. It was a trap. The Battle of Yekros Prime was supposed to be a surprise attack by the Alliance. They wanted to destroy a Drexeri shipyard. The plan was perfect. Monroe had studied the area. Cole had designed the weapons. Briggs was ready to lead the charge. But the Drexeri were waiting. As soon as the fleet arrived, the Drexeri attacked from all sides. Missiles and beams filled space. Ships exploded. The Alliance was caught off guard. Captain Briggs shouted orders. Harper tried to regroup his forces. Monroe sent warnings to retreat. It was chaos. Jeremy Cole was on a support ship. He stayed calm and tried to help. But a Drexeri cruiser hit their engines. The ship started to break apart. Cole stayed behind to help others escape. He got many people to the pods. But in the end, he couldn't save himself. The ship exploded. Jeremy Cole was gone. The news hit the Alliance hard. Everyone knew Cole. He was the mind behind many victories. His loss was painful. Harper felt the weight in his chest. Briggs cried for the first time in years. Monroe sat alone, staring at the stars. But Harper didn't give up. He called what was left of the fleet. He told them they were not broken. He reminded them why they fought. "We lost a good man," he said, "but we will not lose this war." With fire in his heart, Harper led a counterattack. He used every trick he knew. He moved the ships in strange patterns. He made the Drexeri think they were retreating. Then he struck their flank. The Drexeri didn't expect it. The battle turned. The Alliance took back control. Yekros Prime was saved, but at a great cost. After the battle, the Alliance leaders met. Harper stood before them, and told them about the Trekari's betrayal. The evidence was clear. Some wanted to punish all Trekari, but Harper said no. We fight the Drexari, not each other. We must stay united. Still, trust was broken. The Alliance had learned a hard lesson. Not everyone wanted peace. Not everyone wanted to follow. But humans had shown once again that they would not back down. Briggs continued her missions. Monroe took Cole's place in the command room. She worked harder than ever. She didn't speak much, but her plans were sharper. She wanted to honor her friend. The galaxy saw the Alliance struggle, but also saw it stand tall again. The Drexari had tried to break them with a traitor's help. They failed. Harper looked at the stars from his command deck. The war was far from over. More pain would come, but so would more courage. He knew the Drexari were scared now, not just of humans, but of what humans could inspire in others. They had faced betrayal. They had faced loss. But the fire in their hearts burned even stronger. And the war moved forward. The Drexari were angry after the Battle of Yekros Prime. They had lost again, and now they wanted revenge. Their new plan was bold and dangerous. They would strike at the heart of the Alliance. They would attack Earth. The news spread fast. The humans had never faced a battle on their home planet. The Alliance fleet rushed to defend the Sol system, but there were not many ships left. Ammunition was low. Fuel was short. The people of Earth prepared for the worst. Colonel Dean Harper stood before his troops. "This is our last stand," he said. "If we fall here, the galaxy falls with us. We are not just fighting for Earth. We are fighting for every world that dreams of freedom." Lieutenant Kayla Monroe worked night and day. She had an idea. She remembered an old human weapon, an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP. She believed a massive EMP could stop the Drexari fleet in space. With help from engineers and scientists, she turned Earth's satellites into a giant EMP grid. It was risky. If it failed, Earth would be defenseless. Captain Laura Briggs arrived just in time with her team. They had stolen Drexari data from a secret base. That data showed where the Drexari ships would enter the system. It gave Earth a small advantage. Soon, the sky over Earth turned black. Hundreds of Drexari ships arrived. Their shadows fell over cities and oceans. People looked up with fear, but they also had hope. Monroe gave the signal. The satellites lit up. A wave of energy spread through space. It hit the Drexari ships like a storm. Lights flickered. Engines stopped. Almost half the enemy fleet was disabled. The rest kept coming. Fighting broke out in space and on the ground. The Alliance ships flew side by side. Pilots used every trick they knew. Civilians on Earth joined the fight. Farmers became soldiers. Teachers carried rifles. Old and young stood together. The Drexari landed in the deserts, forests, and cities. Battles took place on every continent. But the humans would not give up. They used every tool, every trap, every piece of knowledge they had. In the middle of the fight, Harper led a group through the ruins of a city. His arm was bleeding, but he kept going. "We hold the line," he told his team. "We don't let them pass." Briggs and Monroe joined forces at the final front. They had one last mission: to take out the Drexari command ship above Earth. It was still working and giving orders to the rest. They took a small team and launched from a hidden base. They flew low and fast. Enemy fire followed them. But they reached the ship. They boarded it and fought room by room. It was dark and hot inside. Drexari guards attacked, but the humans moved like lightning. Briggs reached the control center. She placed charges and set the timer. Monroe covered her, taking down the last Drexari soldier. They escaped just before the explosion. The command ship broke apart in the sky. The Drexari forces on Earth began to fall back. Their leaders were gone. Their ships were broken. One by one, they surrendered or fled. The sky cleared. The people of Earth looked up and saw the stars again. The battle was over. Harper stood on the battlefield, tired but alive. His clothes were torn. His face was dirty. But he smiled. "We did it," he said. Monroe looked at the damage around them. "We'll rebuild," she said. Briggs nodded. "But first, we rest." All across Earth and beyond, people celebrated. The Drexeri were not just beaten. They were defeated in a way they could never forget. The last stand had become a new beginning. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The war was over. The Drexeri were defeated. Their ships were broken, their leaders captured, and their power lost. Across the galaxy, people were still in shock. For thousands of years, no one had ever won a war against the Drexeri. But now, they had lost. And it was the humans who had led that victory. The Galactic Council called for peace talks. Every race, every leader, and every survivor sent someone to attend. The meeting was held on a peaceful moon near the center of the galaxy. For the first time, everyone was equal at the same table. Colonel Dean Harper came in simple clothes, not in uniform. He didn't want power or glory. He wanted peace. He sat quietly, listening to the others. Some leaders praised humans. Others asked questions. "How did your people do it?" They said, "How did you defeat the Drexeri?" Harper only smiled. "We did not do it alone. We had help from every species that stood up and said, 'No more.' But humans, we fight hard when we must, and we never stop." Many nodded in agreement. Even the old enemies of Earth now looked at humans with respect. A new vote was held. The council wanted to form a peacekeeping force, one that would stop future wars before they could begin. And they wanted humans to lead it. Harper stood and shook his head. "We'll help build it. We'll train and advise. But we don't need to lead. Let this be a team of equals. That's how we win. Together." Lieutenant Kayla Monroe was offered a top position. She accepted, but only after making one request. We'd name it after the ones we lost. Jeremy Cole, and all the others who gave everything. So the new group was called the Cole Peace Guard. Captain Laura Briggs returned to Earth. She visited the families of those who had fallen. She told them stories of bravery and honor. She didn't wear medals. She didn't get speeches. She simply said thank you, again and again. Back on the moon, new leaders were trained. Young aliens studied human tactics and teamwork. They learned how to think in new ways, how to use what they had, even if it wasn't much. They learned courage. And across the galaxy, a new phrase began to spread. It started as a whisper, then became a saying, then a truth. "If you face a human in war, pray they're your ally." This saying was written on banners. It was carved into stone. It was taught in schools. It was told to children before bed. Not because humans were the strongest, not because they were the smartest, but because they never gave up. Harper watched it all from his home on Earth. He lived a quiet life. Sometimes soldiers visited him. He gave them advice. Sometimes children sent him drawings. He always sent a thank you letter back. Monroe continued to work with the Peace Guard. She helped train young leaders. She wrote books about the war, but in simple words so everyone could understand. She smiled more now, but her eyes still held the memory of loss. Briggs opened a school for explorers. She believed the galaxy still held secrets and beauty. "We won a war," she said, "but now we must win peace." The galaxy slowly healed. Planets were rebuilt. Trade began again. Enemies became allies. And through it all, humans helped. Not with loud speeches, not with force, but with quiet strength, honest work, and the promise that they would stand with those who could not stand alone. In time, statues were built of Harper, Monroe, Cole, and Briggs, not as gods, not as rulers, but as people. Brave, flawed, kind people who made a difference. And the stars, once cold and full of fear, now shone with a new light. The light of respect. The light of hope. The light that came when humans helped lead the way.